I was like, all right, let me watch it. So for anybody that doesn't know, the show is built on the premise that Russia beat us to the moon. Which, when I didn't know that's what it was about. I knew it was about the moon and like all of that, but like, you know, I didn't know that was the thing, that Russia beat us to the moon. And I was like, whoa, that's a crazy alternate universe idea story where I thought, I was like, man, that's a really good idea. I have not gotten all that far into it. Like I said, I only had time to watch the one episode last night, but the one episode I saw, you guys were right about For All Mankind. That looks like that's going to be able to keep my attention. Looks like it's going to be pretty good. But I just thought that was a unique idea that Russia beat us to the moon there. But again, 60-some% of America had watched the moon landing and only about 37% about the Super Bowl. I think that's about the explosion in our population. I think that's what that's coming down to.
He sucks on Instagram too. Follow him anyway at Dan.Stansberry. The Stansberry Show on Rock 1069.
I am sitting on a set of these Lamb of God and Macedon tickets. Before the end of the program, I am going to get you into that. Also, Teresa rocks the bank with you again at 10 a.m. That second $1,000 keyword of the day. Those presented by Beavers Marine. We had been talking about the moon landing again, not because it's fake, man. Like, not that. It's because Darren Ravel pointed out that a lot of people watched the Super Bowl on Sunday. Yes, it's 200 and some million viewers, not dollars, sorry. But he claims here that the first moon landing was watched by 64% of America, yet Super Bowl 58 was only watched by about 37%. Now, welcome to populations exploding, right, and that kind of thing. And I said, what the hell were the other people doing the day of the moon landing? Like, what the hell were you doing? And this came in off the text line, and again, I wish I had this person's name. I'd love to give them the credit. Them, it could be a man or a woman, I don't know. 330-450-7625 to text. They said, is it possible that those people did not watch the moon landing because they didn't own a television yet? Kind of wild, man, like when you say that, because it's like, when you say that to somebody now, it's like, what? But I'm old enough to remember where, like, second and third TV in the house was crazy. I remember when my parents allowed me to put a color TV in my room and I bought another cable box. Every one of my friends thought it was like the coolest thing in the world because it just wasn't that common. People did it. It wasn't that common. TVs have now kind of exploded. There's a woman who works here, and they have me on in the sales bullpen right now, which is why I'm going to tell you the story. This woman has 13 televisions in her house. 13, baby! A baker's dozen. Like, do you have any idea how insane that is? And compared to, you're right, maybe some people just didn't have a television for the moon landing back then. That might have been a thing. Maybe that was a thing. I started to ponder the question and asked you guys, and you could let me know by texting 330-450-7625. What would get 64% of America's attention again? The Super Bowl is one of the most viewed things that we have. And they say here the numbers are about 37% of America. Now, again, total number of viewers, there's going to be some worldwide stuff there, international. The NFL is getting more international, not quite as much as the NBA. We'll see what happens there. So I was asking you guys what we think would happen. Most of you think it would have to be a plannable event, right? It's going to have to be something like that. Mars landing would be big. Put a pin in that. I'm not quite sure it would do it. Kelly says alien invasion is what I could think of. I think the problem with both of your suggestions, not that I think it's like insane, but I don't think people would believe they were on Mars. Now, I know plenty of people have questioned the moon landing forever, right? But there is no debating now about whether or not more people have been pulled into the group of not real, fake man, not real. I mean, come on, right? So, like, I'm not sure that would do it. Now, what could happen there is people will watch things even if they don't believe them so they can talk about the thing. Like, I need to be able to have an opinion on what I've seen here, so let me watch. That may drive the rating. I could see that. I don't think Mars would do it. I'm a little bit, I'm skeptical on that one. But you could be right. I mean, I don't know that I'm right about it. I had said I think the news of a presidential assassination would do it. Not that I want one. I think it's the worst thing to happen to a country. It shows fragility on a level that I'm not comfortable with. I think it tells everybody else around the world, oh, baby, they are right for the takeoff now. We can, and so like, I don't want that at all. But I do think that would do it. I think the news of that, people would rush to find out that information, rush to the radio, rush to the television to kind of hear more, see more about that. I could see that kind of being the thing. This is coming in off the text line again, 330-450-7625, that another 9/11 would beat the moon landing. Well, I remember 9/11 perfectly. I had been staying at my parents'. I've told this story before. I woke up, I went downstairs, and I saw the first building. And I remember asking my father, what are you watching? And he said to me, this is happening. And it just, you sunk into the couch. And I'll never forget. It looked like one of them paintings. It was my mother, me in the middle, and my dad sitting on the other side of me as we just stared at the television in full disbelief of what we were seeing. And I'll never forget it. As he put his arm around me and said, son, remember today, because your life will never be the same ever again. He was kind of right. He's kind of right. Now, it's not all negative, but like there have been plenty of changes to our lives, and our lives are a little bit different forever. He was a touch right about that. I'll tell you what I find interesting about these conversations and your guys' answers. I think 9/11's a good answer. Presidential assassination would be a good answer of what's going to get a bunch of people viewing something. Again, 60-some% of the country. I think those are good answers. And I think we're right about it. But I notice those are negative. And that's what we think it would take to get the attention of that many of us. Blood on the track. Now, what I'm about to say is under the guise of we went to the moon and we landed on the moon. I believe we did. I have always said you could get me on the moon landing being fake way before you'll get me on flat Earth. I understand the motive about lying about the moon landing if we lied about it. I understand it. You were trying to beat Russia. There was a space race. We were trying to show our dominance, and we were trying to do that, so I understand what the motive would be there. In the beginning of the world, when people were like, hey man, the world's flat, don't tell anybody. Like, I don't understand what the motive is to lie to me about the shape of the planet. I can't reconcile that. So, back to the original point, that the moon landing was positive. There was hope there. Look at what we can do. And I think it's interesting that second $1,000 keyword presented by Beavers Marine out to you at 10. Before I'm done, I still got another set of these Lamb of God Mastodon tickets. I'll get those passed out here in just a couple of minutes. We have been talking about the moon landing again because somebody had compared it to the Super Bowl this last week. Apparently 67% of America had watched the moon landing, but only about 37% of America had watched the Super Bowl this last week. Now, more viewers maybe because welcome to populations exploding around the world and the like. Also, I had brought up, like, what were people doing the day of the moon landing that they weren't watching? And people remind me, like, hey, buddy, let's not pretend that, you know, TVs in every room was always a thing, because it wasn't. I said, maybe those people didn't own a television. And I was like, oh, God, like, I just missed it, right? Because multiple TVs in homes has just kind of been part of my life, although I kind of talked about that, like, my generation kind of ushered that in. Now, Kenny had been listening and said, you know, the person that's talking about the lack of TV viewing for the moon landing, or the people not having TVs, like, they're absolutely right. I remember watching the moon landing as a kid, and we had to go to the neighbor's house because we didn't have a TV that could pick it up. And 3 of the families in the neighborhood all went to one house, and we watched it there. It's like, yeah, so there were definitely less televisions, and that's probably why some people hadn't seen it. He says, though, an alien invasion, he said he thinks that gets people to the TV. I think it gets people to the TV and it gets a big rating. I just don't think people are going to believe what they're seeing. Now, plenty of people didn't believe the moon landing when it happened. And we can maybe have a deeper conversation on whether or not that did happen. We can do that tomorrow. A lot of people said another 9/11, another this, maybe a presidential assassination. It's just, the big difference for me is that the moon landing was a positive. It was like, look at what we can do. And now it seems like we all kind of agree that unless like catastrophe happens, we may not come together on that for collective viewing. Which I hope we're wrong about that. I really do. I think, as a matter of fact, now would be a great time for the government to do something like that. America needed hope with the moon, like we did, and that's why a lot of people feel like they did fake it, is because of how much hope we did need. Again, we were in a race with another country. I think they'd be the first ones going, no, because of this and that, and no, we're working on that tech too, and no, you're not seeing a lot of that, or did not see a ton of that anyway. But I think now would be a great time for a massive leap forward in innovation. Now, I'm not sure we would come together, because I think it would be like, well, the other side cured cancer, but he's still a Nazi, right? And I think that's kind of what would maybe happen now. And I'm a pessimist. Maybe that's why I view it that way. So we talked about that a little bit today. We talked Valentine's Day. I said multiple times this morning, and I maintain, I just hope you're happy. If it's you're happy single, you're happy with somebody, I don't care what it is, just find a way to just kind of enjoy more days, right? But we did talk about how Uber and Lyft are going to organize a walkout today over, driver pay. We talked about that, a few other things as well. If you missed any of it, pick up the podcast shortly at WRQK.com. Aside from that, I'm done for the day. Teresa will rock the bank with you again at 10 a.m., pass out another $1,000 keyword. Stay safe out there, be good to one another, and do, in fact, meet me here tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. for Thursday's program on Rock 106.9. Hopefully you have a great afternoon, and hopefully I run into you somewhere around town. I will take caller, let's say 12 on these Lamb of God Mastodon tickets. 330-450-7625. Toll free at 800-243-7625 on those Lamb of God tickets. I'll catch you guys again tomorrow. Have a great day.
Ew, gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why.
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors, it helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in one wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products. Need to breathe. The Caves World Tour. With special guest, Judah and the Lion. Live across North America. Get tickets now at livenation.com.
Warning, the show you're about to hear has been prepared by some of the best talent in the industry we could get. For the money. Do not attempt this at home. Doing so would only expose just how useless and brainless these people really are.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Are you ready?
Because if we didn't get him a job, he'd probably be dead. It's the Stansberry Show. Rock 1069.
Welcome to Tuesday morning on the Stansberry Show. We're on Rock 1069. We're also online. That you can find us at WRQK.com. If you happen to miss yesterday's program, any show before it, that's where we put the podcast. This morning at 9 a.m., I'll give you that first Rock the Bank keyword worth $1,000. We'll get you paid out at 9. We'll continue those all day. Also at 9 a.m., it is Tuesday, so I'll give you, New Tour Tuesday. I got new stuff from Beyonce. This is called Texas Hold'em. Apparently, this is why she's been wearing a cowboy hat recently. Apparently, she's going to release a country album. She's going to win that album of the year one way or another. You're not going to stop her. She's going to find it. She's going to pick the format and find it one way or the other. Okay, so it's like, it's her style of music with a little country twang thrown in it, otherwise known as pop music, right? And so, all right, I hear it. There's another conversation inside of this that we're going to have to have a little in-depth look at 9 o'clock, and I plan on doing that. Also, we are going to have to talk about, I don't know, with the Carter family here a little bit with Jay-Z and Beyonce. Like, do people not remember it was Kanye West who ran up on a stage and interrupted Taylor Swift in the middle of winning an award to talk about how Beyonce's record was better. Then, just the other night at the Grammys, Jay-Z's up there kind of giving everybody a lecture because she didn't win and Taylor kind of walked away with the hard way. It's like, what is their problem with Taylor Swift? What is it? What is Beyonce's problem with Taylor? Why are all these men who are around Beyonce sticking up and trying to protect her? What is Beyonce's? I want somebody to press Beyonce. Get the beehive out here and explain it to me. What is her problem with Taylor Swift? I think I might know what it is now. I think I might know what it is now. And that's a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation too. We'll highlight both of those. We'll get there at 9 o'clock for New Turd Tuesday. Also have new stuff from Hardy, country artist, although he wants to be a rock artist. I told you this when he put out his last record. There's a song on it called Kill Stuff Till I Die. That's me cleaning it up. And in it, that song is heavier than anything 3 Days Grace ever put out. I know 3 Days Grace isn't like the heaviest rock band of all time, but you take the point. Well, now Hardy's back with another one. This one's called Hardy's reaching into the rock world for Rockstar. He's not wrong. A bunch of people have a song called Rockstar. I mean, most notably, I think it would be, for me, off the top of my head, Nickelback, who we mentioned. Little Post Malone there had that song Rockstar, right? A few others as well. So we'll give you a new Hardy for New Turd Tuesday. Then, this fell into my lap yesterday. I had no idea that this was coming out. Just kind of fell into my lap. I must have missed the announcement. But the company sent me an email. It's like, hey, man, we're doing a world premiere. Be on the lookout for this. I was like, well, if we're world premiering it, then I'm playing it for New Turd Tuesday. One of the biggest bands of all time, and what a lot of people say is the best band to come out of Seattle. Not for my taste, but they are damn good. Pearl Jam's dropped a new one. This is called Dark Matter, which apparently is the title track of the new that a little heavier than I expected new Pearl Jam to be. Much more of a groove sound in the background of it than I expected. So that's not all bad there. So we'll take a listen to the rest of new Pearl Jam. Dark Matter, figure out if that's any good. Also, like I said, new Hardy, new Beyonce, and at 9 a.m., that's when you get your first $1,000 Rock the Bank keyword. We'll pass that out at 9. Also at 8, we're going to have to take a look at this Houston shooting. There's an uncomfortable conversation that's brewing inside of mass shootings over the last 2 years in this country. Not that many people are willing to have this conversation. There's a few reasons why. It has nothing to do with the guns, and that's why we're not talking about it as a country. But at this point, we've had like 7 or 8 of these in a row, and it's probably time we point something out. Because if it were any other group of people, we would be doing it. And that's what equality is. That's what inclusive is that when you're guilty of something, we can point the finger at it, right? That's kind of how it works. So we're going to have a conversation. It's going to be uncomfortable, but there's something brewing, and we're all turning a blind eye to it, and it might be time to stop doing that. So we'll take a look at that shooting in Houston to get us into that conversation a little bit. We'll do that coming up. 7:45 this morning. Promotions came through. I have your tickets. This morning, all this week, we're getting you into Creed. Get your arms wide open for those tickets, man. That show's going to be pretty damn good, right? Creed, 3 Doors Down. Wolfie, Finger 11. I believe it's on a Friday night, I believe, is what is going down there. Creed, I believe it's November on that one. Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. This morning, I'll have tickets for you. All this week, we'll get you into Creed. Like I said, 7:45 this morning. All right, Taylor Swift fans are looking for the breakup with Travis Kelce. Apparently, something happened on the field, and Taylor Swift fans are worried that Taylor could be in danger. She may be in harm's way, physical harm, coming at the hands of Travis Kelce over what Swiftie fans saw out of Travis while playing in the Super Bowl. What's happening here, you know what's happening here, is new football fans are coming to the game not recognizing that a lot of this stuff is run-of-the-mill, average, welcome to dudes competing, and her fans are used to watching her go out with sissies like John Mayer, and she went out and found a man. And so now all of a sudden the fans are like, oh, I don't know about these men. These men are terrible. What you want is this dude over here who secretly wants to date your brother who's telling you he's a man. That's what you're looking for, right? What you need is one of those. But it's like, no, dude, that's why none of those relationships worked out for Taylor. You realize that, right? That's why none of them worked out. Is because, well, first, she was dating too many musicians who, behind closed doors, were going to be in competition with her in their mind, which is a stupid attempt because she's going to trounce you. Like, she just is, right? So there's going to be competition there. Beyond that, she was with too many of those My Body is a Wonderland soft dudes. And, like, it wasn't working out. And so she went out and got the dude off the brownie package, and she looks really happy. But Taylor Swift fans think she's in harm's way. We'll talk about that coming up at 7 o'clock. Probably will have to talk about the Super Bowl rating a couple of times since it was the most watched broadcast television thing ever. Ever. Now, I know that lends you to believe that I was wrong all day yesterday and that they rigged it for the views, right? Well, it's not like nobody watched it last year. And I'll maintain, rigged it for the views and Travis didn't score a touchdown with Taylor Swift in attendance. Well, if that's true, that's the worst Hollywood script I've ever seen in my life.
Here's what's next on the Stansberry Show.
Well, it turns out a Canton man is going to go to jail because he decided showing pornography to children would be funny. It's not. We'll fill you in on what's going on. We'll do that next on Rock 106.9.
The Stansberry Show on Rock 106.9.
7:45 this morning. I'm going to get you into Creed. That show November. Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse on that one. 3 Doors Down, part of that too. Wolfgang Van Halen. Finger 11. Not a bad lineup there. I mean, at this point, I think Creed could pretty much come out and just give you them playing the round, give you all the hits nonstop. 3 Doors Down as the also band, like that's a pretty good get for like, oh yeah, and they're going to be there, right? 3 Doors Down is kind of one of those bands where it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Oh, dude, that one too. Yeah, right, that one's pretty good, right? Like they're kind of one of those bands, a little faceless, but the songs are bigger than the band, which is what most people say they want in a band. And yet when you don't have a star, everybody talks about how you're not good enough. And so like it's kind of one of those interesting things. 330-450-7625 to send a text. Those are already coming in this morning. I'm being told that I am a pompous blowhard, to which I will respond by saying, duh. Like, I mean, I don't know. Am I supposed to be ashamed about that? Am I supposed to run and hide from you now after that? Because that won't be happening. 330-450-7625 to let me know what it is you think about any damn thing we may be talking about or just how much you hate me. That's what Logan chose to do. That line is open to you to use how you see fit. I didn't see this particular story until just this morning. You'll have to forgive me here. Apparently, this goes back to the 4th. But a man now is being charged, a Canton man, has been arrested and is facing charges because apparently this man was viewing pornography in a public restaurant. Now, the problem is he wasn't just like watching it on his phone. The guy's 30, so I'm guessing he thought this was going to be funny. He decided he was going to cast what was on his phone, apparently onto one of the, excuse me, a little coffee there, cast the pornography that was on his phone onto one of the televisions that had been in the restaurant. That has become so much easier to do. Back in the day, you kind of had to buy like a Chromecast adapter. Now, if you can just Bluetooth to the television, it will text you a code, you enter it, and you can kind of take over the TV. I know this because I just bought a brand new television the other day, about a couple of weeks ago, for the Browns Houston. That's I bought it right before that. And obviously I wanted it for the Super Bowl. And so it gave me that option pretty much right away. But according to the Summit County Sheriff's Office, it happened at a restaurant on Massillon Road in Greene. Now, the man himself is from Canton. It does not tell me the restaurant here, and I've only seen this article on this thus far. If more information I can find, we will get into more information on this later throughout the program. Investigators say 3 families were in the restaurant after a youth basketball tournament. This again on February 4th. That party included 6 kids, all aged between 9 and 12 years old. Now, the group told investigators that while at the restaurant, they noticed pornography playing on one of the TVs. So one of the parents reached out to the Summit County Sheriff's Office, who then responded. This was around 8:30 in the evening that day. Someone was using their cell phone to cast pornography onto the television. Now, this will not be hard to figure out who. There's a digital trail of everything. You got to love these people who are on social media apps talking about how the messages disappear so nobody can catch me doing anything. It's like, oh my God. Like nothing could be further from the truth. Anything you do online, anything you press your thumb on digitally, there is a traceable system put in place there. Now, whether or not your local police department will be able to crack that, that's another subject. But they do have the ability. Sheriff's deputies now say they have identified the suspect. He is a 30-year-old Canton man, and he had been arrested. This was yesterday, and then taken to Summit County Jail. He's charged with, obviously passing out harmful matter to juveniles under the age of 13. And again, like I said, 30. This feels a little old for boys will be boys. But I need to, not that I'm looking to, excuse this away. I'm not. But, I was probably still too juvenile at 30. I was in a very young, youth-based business like this is. A ton of Peter Pans show up in this industry. It's honestly, it's an industry built on Peter Pans, for sure. That's why I felt at home when I got here. But there's a little bit of dude, come on. Even in my youth, when I didn't care about other people and I was just bitter and I don't know, whatever it is about kid, when you're just a little complacent. That's the word I'm looking for, is complacent, right? And, and I was just a little bit that way. There were certain things I would have stopped short of. And showing pornography in public, that's one of those things I would have seen in a movie and thought to myself, oh God, that's very funny. But would have known this isn't going to be funny when I get caught. This isn't fireworks in this isn't blowing off an M80 in the school parking lot. That's, kids will be kids, boys will be boys, what have you. There's a little bit of that. It's dangerous, you shouldn't do it, but I think that's a little bit inside the lines of finding out who you are and finding out where the danger line is. Okay. Showing pornography to children, maybe I'm doing the thing I always get mad about when people are looking back through their life at a filter of their age now, but I just don't see myself doing that. I just don't see myself doing it because, again, that's not people, you're not getting in trouble there. That is going to be something beyond trouble, and the juice isn't worth the squeeze at that point. I'm not going to get so off on laughing about the fact that it's doing it to counter what the negative repercussions that are coming down the road for me are. But this is easy to do. Like I said, I literally just bought a television not that long ago, and did I try to cast porn to it from my cell phone? Yes, I did. Now, I bought I think it's 77 inches or something, that TV. Let me tell you, dude, I know now why they took porn out of movie theaters. It's too big. There's something, I was sitting there on the couch and I was watching it. I was like, the size of this now makes it apparent that what I'm doing is inappropriate. And I should just, let's put this part of my body back in behind the zipper, buddy. That's where it goes.
Live from the Hall of Fame City. And just as bad as NFL officiating. The Stansberry Show on Rock 1069.
9 a.m. Let's get out that first $1,000 Rock the Bank keyword. Got Valentine's Day tomorrow. You can pay for that using our money versus yours. Well, I guess once we give it to you, it's your money. Still, one of my all-time favorite movies, Color Money, that quote is, money won is twice as sweet as money earned. That's true. Having just deposited a couple $1,000s of winnings from the Super Bowl the other night, let me tell you, that was pretty sweet yesterday. I enjoyed paying off my credit card with winning money on that rigged game. Everybody knew it was rigged. They didn't bet it. You know why? Because they knew in the back of their mind it wasn't rigged. Otherwise, they would have. Why aren't you paying off your mortgage today? Because you didn't know it was rigged. That's why. Because if you did, you would have bet the house on it. I knew it was rigged. Yeah, all right. Sure you know. You know another argument that comes out that every time this year that I'm just kind of over, if I'm honest, is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominations. They're out. Quickly down the list. A Tribe Called Quest. I like them. Sade, I like her. Ozzy, clearly a fan. Sinead, you know, I wasn't a big fan. That was a big moment. It feels like two songs, not necessarily Hall of Fame worthy to me, but okay. Oasis, I think they may have been overrated mid-90s, but now may be underrated when you look back on their career and how people view them now. Lenny Kravitz is on this list. Kool and the Gang. Jane's Addiction. Man, that feels marginal. Like, they were more influential than they were great. There's a little bit of a Kiss argument there, although Kiss is in. Although it did take them forever. Peter Frampton, a nominee. Foreigner, which should be in already. Making them wait is crazy. Eric B. and Rakim. If you're talking hip-hop, they're all-time great. And they were, without them, you don't have half the artists that came after them. They were very, very influential early. Dave Matthews Band is on the list. It's not necessarily my cup of tea. It's not my thing, but they're talented musicians, and there are Dave Matthews Band songs I like a lot. One of the nicest guys I ever met in the world, by the way. Just was so nice to me when I met him. Great dude. Cher's on this list. Mariah Carey's on the list, and Mary J. Blige is on the list. So every year we have to have the conversation. Oh my God, if it's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, why is a Tribe Called Quest going in? And I've always liked Ice Cube's mentality on this. Now, granted, he was in NWA, so of course he wants to see it this way, that rock and roll is an attitude, and I think it's true. Elvis would have been considered to be rock and roll of his day. But that's not what you consider to be rock and roll today. By the way, what is rock and roll anymore? Like, who are rock and roll bands? I can tell you who the metal bands are. I can tell you who the death metal bands are. I can tell you who the goth bands are. Who is like the rock and roll band of right now? Well, probably the Foo Fighters. That's what everybody's going to say, right? There's like, well, the Foos. Okay. That's a rock and roll band. I agree that they're a little bit more rock and roll. The ultimate rock and roll band, ironically, as we were just talking about them the other day, is this band is rock and roll to me. Just plug in and play it. Sing about sex, sing about drugs, sing about booze, sing about having a good time. That's rock and roll. AC/DC is a rock and roll band. There's not that many of them around anymore. So, like, the point is we're getting into this genre territory of, like, subgenres of, like, a classification, which gets weird. Now, I've said for years this is a music hall and we've known it. I think that's partially because I worked closely with the Rock Hall back in the day when I first started at MMS. We had a very tight relationship with them, and we did the summer concert series with them, and we did all of that. And so, like, you got to meet people there, and, like, you got to see behind the curtain a little, and it's like, all right, yeah, man, I kind of see how this goes. Also, like, the people who get mad about this are never walking into the building ever. And so it's like, is it really worth getting this hot and bothered about? Now, it's been a music hall forever. And that's how I've always said, I'm like, it's a music hall. But, like, nobody's going to put AC/DC in the Hip Hop Hall of Fame. Like, they're not going to do that, right? And, like, what we have, I think it's the Motown Hall of Fame in Detroit, right? Hitsville or whatever, I think is what they call that. And I'm a big Motown guy. But nobody's putting Slipknot in that, right? Because that's not where Slipknot goes. Like, it's not where it goes. But rock and roll, I mean, like, the term is so broad. I mean, back in the day, rock, like, everybody says, make radio great again, right? Like, that's one of those phrases in the 70s. Oh, you mean when we played Joni Mitchell into, like, Free? Because that happened. Like that, I mean, that's the way rock stations sounded in the 70s. People forget that. It's like, nah, dude, you heard the first Foreigner record, you heard this on, you know, on the sound of Cleveland FM, right? And all that. Yeah, I get that. But rock and roll, that's how they sounded. It was like Joni Mitchell, Pink Floyd. It was whatever the hell. It was all kind of mishmashed together. So at this point, what I kind of want is, I want a fan-built Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That way they can stop complaining about it. And then have your own thing. Build it, and he will come. Is actually the way that phrase is in that movie, right? Everybody says it is, if you build it, they will come. I believe if you build it, he will come. But if you build it, they shall come. Right? I don't understand. First of all, you know this is the way it is. They've been doing it this way 10 plus years, if not more. So every year getting that mad, that's not rock and roll, man. Rock and roll, what a sham. What an awful building. What a total crock. You weren't going anyway. Right? We know this. We know this here. You know the amount of people I've met in my 10 years here that will proudly tell you they've never stepped foot in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which I don't get at all. It's like, guys, you better start going through that place. I don't care how many designs they got for a village. If it ain't successful, dude, they will yank that goddamn thing out of here and put it wherever the hell they want. They're never going to do that. Yeah, I remember when they told me they were never going to have a team or a Super Bowl in Las Vegas. And yet, we are. And yet, that money starts talking, baby. And then next thing you know, we got to do what that money is saying. So, like, people get all upset about this. Do I think A Tribe Called Quest is rock and roll? No. Like, I don't. Is Low End Theory a damn good record that more people should have in their collection? Yes, absolutely it is. I'm okay with them being honored. And I'm even more okay with them being honored in a music hall. I don't expect the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to be Kiss, Foreigner, Metallica, and AC/DC. Like, I don't. I also don't expect them to put in every rock band that is deserving the first year. Because it's an event. And they have to do it every single year. They have to make it a draw every single year. So they build in a little people. They build in some, let's make them wait a little bit. Let's make them wait a little bit. Their fan base is going to get all hot and bothered. We'll get them in the fan vote. We'll do all this stuff. We'll make them wait. There's some of that that's built into that, for sure. Now, some of the leadership has flipped over at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I've been told that things will get better because of that. With the induction committee, we'll see if that happens over the years. I don't know what better would be. That's a pretty broad term there. But again, your nominees, Mary J. Blige, Mariah Carey, Cher, Dave Matthews, Eric B. and Rakim, Foreigner, Peter Frampton, Jane's Addiction, Kool and the Gang, Lenny Kravitz, Oasis, Ozzy, Sade, A Tribe Called Quest. Did I skip somebody there? Maybe Sinead O'Connor, I may have skipped right there. Now, Ozzy's already said he feels completely honored by it. Now, Liam Gallagher, he went the other route. It's a load of bollocks, we don't need it, right? Like, he kind of went that way. Ozzy, of course, nearing the end of his life, was like, it's an honor to be mentioned amongst these artists. It's an honor to be thought of as a Hall of Fame artist. And I would say it's almost egregious about the fact that he's not in as a solo artist by now.
Give Stansberry a piece of your mind. Use the talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app and let him know just how wrong he is.
It's just wrong.
The Stansberry Show on Rock 106.9.
9 a.m. this morning, I'll rock the bank with you, get you paid out with that $1,000 keyword. Also, I'm sitting on that new Pearl Jam. We'll give that a listen for New Turd Tuesday. The name of that, Dark Matter. And apparently that is the title track of the album as well. We'll also give you New Hardy for New Turd Tuesday, his song Rockstar. And then I also have new Beyonce as well, Texas Hold'em, the name of that. We'll give you all three of those for New Turd Tuesday. We've been talking about rock stars a little bit as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominations came out. And this conversation is not rock and roll, man, like every year. It's like this is a paint by numbers conversation. You could file it under the, my theory of don't get mad about what you knew was going to happen, meaning, like, you knew some of these names, right? Mary J. Blige, Mariah Carey, Cher, Dave Matthews Band, Eric B. and Rakim, Foreigner, Peter Frampton, Jane's Addiction, Kool and the Gang, Lenny Kravitz, Oasis, Sinead O'Connor, Ozzy, Sade, and A Tribe Called Quest. Now, if we just dispel the argument of, like, that's not rock and roll, dude, and we just get down to worthy or not, it becomes easier. Mary's worthy. Mariah Carey's a shoo-in. Cher as well. David Matthews. I don't know why I keep doing that. Dave Matthews, shoo-in. Eric B. and Rakim for a lot of people would be marginal. I think it's people who don't know hip-hop maybe as well as some others. If you know hip-hop, you're putting them in, and easily. Foreigner to me is like, duh, they're one of the legs of the table, for crying out loud. Frampton too. I mean, I love Kiss, right? Everybody kind of knows. Like, in Kiss Alive kind of put them on the map. Frampton Comes Alive was another one of those records that kind of made the record industry go, dude, live albums, this is a thing. Like, dude, we need to be doing a little bit more of this, right? Jane's Addiction, you guys got on me in the text messages, 330-450-7625, because I said they were marginal. And I do believe it. I think they're a little bit more influential than they were great. Now you start talking Perry and you bring Lollapalooza into it and Porno for Pyros, which again would be even more marginal than Jane's. But Jane's Addiction is damn good. Like, they are really good. I have no problem with them going in, but they feel a little bit more marginal to me than some others. I've been talking about some Jane's Addiction songs in some comments with people. I got asked this a couple of times, so I'll just tell all of you. I don't know if it's my favorite, but if you've never heard Splash a Little Water on It by Jane's Addiction, I don't think I have it in this system. If you've never heard Splash a Little Water on It, wait till the show's over. But then pull up iHeartRadio and listen to that song. I really like that one a lot. Kool and the Gang's on the list. Lenny Kravitz, I feel like, goes in. Oasis, I would put in easily. I think they're underrated at this point. I love Oasis. Sinead O'Connor, to me it feels like two songs, but I could be being guilty here of not knowing her catalog well enough. That could be a thing. By the way, the one song, not hers, it was Prince's. So, like, that's the other thing. But you can go in as a performer, you can go in as a writer, you can go in a couple of different ways there. Plenty of people are in with the group they were in and are not in as a solo artist, and I believe that gets us to Ozzy Osbourne right there, which feels like, yeah, put him in. What you don't want to do is wait for Ozzy to die to do it. You don't want to make it look like you had to do it. You want to do this because it's what you want to do. And this brings us to this point. Like, the labeling of music, right? Because we talked about what is rock and roll. And I said, well, if for me, one of the biggest rock and roll, just straightforward rock and roll bands is this band. It's AC/DC. They're a rock and roll band. That's not metal. It's not this. It's not that. That's rock and roll, man. It's just what it is. Which is why it's really good. Another one, honestly, I think just maybe the best rock and roll band all time. It's gotta be this, right? Now, what some of you are thinking is, dude, are you not going to talk about Zeppelin here? That's fair. I think today we would classify Led Zeppelin as a rock and roll band. I'm not sure that's the way it would have always been. Now, they've been played on rock stations, clearly. I think this is where people want to argue. Well, it's blues, right? Or it's this, right? Or it's that. But for me, it was like, no, I'll give you Zeppelin. I'll give you AC/DC. I think the Rolling Stones are probably the biggest and probably best rock and roll band. The Who would be a rock and roll band. Like, a lot of the classic rock stuff is more rock and roll versus, like, metal and all that. But, like, when metal became a genre, nobody, like, that was not, like, a compliment. They were trying to say it just sounded like pieces of metal being clanged together and didn't sound like music. It was a derogatory term. And what happened is the artist picked it up and started to wear it like a badge of honor. The same thing happened with grunge. The same thing happened with all of these classifications, right? And so, like, we were judged, and I was like, who's the new rock and roll band, right? I said, well, people are going to tell me these guys. Again, not new, the Foo Fighters, but I understand what you mean. Semi-current, yes, absolutely. And I think the Foo Fighters do fit the bill. That's a rock and roll band to me. Absolutely. And a lot of you guys had this band, and I know some of you may not know all of these songs, because I think when they were really a rock and roll band, their stuff wasn't as well known, but I think it was Matthew and Tim both were like, dude, is nobody going to talk about Nickelback? Noodles, man, can't like it. Can't like the ramen head. Yeah, they're a rock and roll band. I would give it to them. I got a lot of Green Day. Is that a rock and roll band? I'll tell you what's interesting about that. You know, when I say the word punk here, everybody's going to be like, oh, listen to the boomer tell you that Green Day's punk. Only a boomer would think Green Day is punk. Punk rock sold out to the man. Least punk rock thing I ever seen. Licking the boots, licking the boots. Like all this stuff that people always say. But is punk birthed out of a rock and roll sound? Yes. As a matter of fact, when Dookie came out, like, we had to create the term pop punk, right? Like, we kind of had to create that. But to me, Dookie just sounds like a rock record. Now, I'm not the biggest punk fan. Like, there's a couple of Ramones tunes I like. 53rd and 3rd's all right. There's a couple of others that are okay. And obviously, if I'm drunk in a bar and I hear the hits, I'm like, yeah, do the Ramones, right? But like most of punk music, like honestly, you could throw in the ocean. Like, I don't care about it. Now that's just my opinion, right? I just don't care for it. I don't think it's evil, right? I don't think it's anything like that. But a lot of punk was basically kids admitting, we have zero clue how to play this instrument whatsoever. No clue. But we do have anger, and we are pissed at our dads. So, like, what we'll do is we'll just, spray paint CBGBs, play 2 notes for 10 years, and then scream, and everybody will tell us we're great. Right? Like, and that's kind of... So, is punk birthed out of rock and roll? I think the answer is